The day my own cousin stole my mother from me started like any other Tuesday. I was bringing Mom her favorite lemon scones from the corner bakery, juggling my phone and the paper bag as I fumbled for her spare key. But when I opened the door, Angela was already there, perched on Mom's floral couch, like she owned it. My name is Zara, and until that moment, I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. "Oh good, you're here," Angela said, her smile razor sharp. "We need to talk about some changes." Mom sat beside her, unusually quiet, hands folded in her lap. The tremor in her right hand, a new symptom we'd been monitoring, seemed worse than usual. "What changes?" I asked, setting down the scones. The paper bag crinkled accusingly in the silence. "Your mother has decided to make me her power of attorney," Angela announced, producing a stack of official-looking documents. "She feels it's best, given your recent financial decisions." I froze. "What financial decisions?" "The gambling, dear," Mom said softly, not meeting my eyes. Angela showed me the evidence. My heart stopped. "What gambling? Mom, I've never—" "We have bank statements," Angela interrupted, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "The late-night withdrawals at casino ATMs, the online betting sites. It's okay, Zara, we all have our demons." "This is insane." I moved toward Mom, but Angela smoothly intercepted me. "Mom, whatever she's shown you is fake. I would never—" "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be," Angela said. "Aunt Vivian needs stability right now, not more stress. The papers are already signed." "Mom," my voice cracked. "You can't believe this." Mom finally looked up, her eyes swimming with tears. "I trusted you with everything, Zara. My care, my finances. How could you?" "I didn't." Angela's lying. I turned desperately to the door as Uncle Jeremiah walked in. "Uncle Jerry, please." "I've seen the evidence myself," he said gravely. "I never thought you'd follow in your father's footsteps this way." The mention of my father, who'd abandoned us after gambling away our savings, hit like a physical blow. "I'm nothing like him," I whispered. "The papers are ironclad," Angela said, standing. "I think it's best if you leave now. We'll handle everything from here." "You can't do this." I was shaking. "Mom, please, let me explain." "I think you should go," Mom said quietly. I need time." "Time for what? For her to poison you against me even more?" I pointed at Angela, who maintained her perfect mask of concern. "She's manipulating you." "That's enough." Uncle Jerry's voice boomed through the room. "Don't make me remove you myself." I looked at each of them, Uncle Jerry's stern disappointment, Angela's manufactured sympathy, and worst of all, Mom's broken trust. The truth hit me like a tidal wave. They'd already decided. Angela had won. "Fine," I managed, my voice thick. "But this isn't over." "Actually, it is," Angela replied smoothly. "The restraining order will be delivered to your apartment tomorrow, for your mother's protection, of course." I stumbled backward, the room spinning. A restraining order. She'd thought of everything. "Mom," I tried one last time. "Mom, please look at me." But she turned away, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Uncle Jerry took my arm, firmly guiding me toward the door. "Don't make this worse," he murmured. "Think of your mother's health." The door closed behind me with a quiet click that felt like a gunshot. I stood there, the spring sunshine suddenly cold on my skin, the paper bag of scones still sitting accusingly on Mom's coffee table. My phone buzzed. A text from Angela. "I'll take good care of her, don't worry." I stared at the message until the screen went dark, then walked numbly to my car. As I gripped the steering wheel, my mother's words echoed in my head. "I trusted you with everything." Well, Angela might have won this round, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated exactly what everything meant. I knew every detail of Mom's finances, every account, every transaction. And somewhere in those details, I was certain I'd find the truth. I started the engine, my hands steady now. Angela thought she'd written the ending to this story, but she was wrong. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. 3 days after being banned from my mother's life, I sat in my best friend Yvette's kitchen, surrounded by stacks of paper and my laptop. The restraining order had arrived as promised, but Angela had made another mistake. She hadn't blocked my online access to Mom's old accounts. "Look at this," I said, pointing to a series of transactions. These withdrawals started 2 months ago, right when Angela began visiting more frequently. Yvette leaned over my shoulder, her coffee forgotten. "That's a lot of money going to some company I've never heard of." "Exactly. And look at the timing. Every withdrawal happens within hours of Angela's visits. I track them against her Instagram posts at Mom's house." "Clever girl." Yvette smiled, then frowned. "But will it be enough?" I rubbed my temples. "No, not yet. I need more." My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at Riverside Coffee, 2 p.m. Come alone." That's cryptic," Yvette said, reading over my shoulder. "Could be a trap. Could be help," I countered. "At this point, I'll take either." "Then I'm coming with you," Yvette declared. "I'll sit at another table. If anything seems off, I'll create a distraction." At 1:55 p.m., I walked into Riverside Coffee, my heart pounding. Yvette slipped in behind me, choosing a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. A man in a crisp blue suit waved me over. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. "Maurice Parker," he said quietly, as I sat down. "I'm Angela's financial advisor, or rather, I was." My guard went up immediately. "Why should I trust you?" "Because I quit yesterday." He slid a folder across the table. "And because I can't sleep at night anymore." I opened the folder, my hands shaking. Inside were documents, dozens of them, financial statements, transfer records, and— "Are these forged signatures?" I whispered. Maurice nodded grimly. "Angela's been doing this for years. Small amounts at first, from vulnerable clients, then bigger ones. Your mother isn't her first victim, but she might be her last." "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I helped her," he admitted, shame crossing his face. "Not with everything, but enough. I thought she was just helping manage her aunt's finances. Then I saw the restraining order filing, started digging deeper, and—" He trailed off. And I found this." He pulled out his phone, showing me an email. "Angela's been moving money through shell companies. That's why the withdrawals look legitimate. But look at where the money really goes." My blood ran cold as I saw the numbers. "These are offshore accounts." "In her name," Maurice confirmed. "She's been bleeding your mother dry, Zara, and she's getting sloppy. Desperate." "Why desperate?" "Because some of her other schemes are falling apart. There's this woman, Daisy Summers. She's been asking questions about her late father's estate that Angela managed." The right questions. I pulled out my phone, taking notes. "I need to meet her." "Already arranged." Maurice handed me a business card. "She's expecting your call. But be careful. Angela's got friends in high places." "So do I now," I said, looking at him. "Why risk this? She could ruin you." Maurice's face hardened. "My father had dementia. Someone like Angela took everything he had before he died. This is my chance to make it right." A commotion at the counter made us both jump. Yvette had accidentally spilled her coffee, but her wide eyes told me what I needed to know. Angela had just walked in. "Back exit," Maurice muttered, gathering the documents. "Take these. I was never here." I slipped out through the kitchen, nodding thanks to Yvette as I passed. My heart was racing, but for the first time in days, I felt hope. That evening, I spread the documents across my dining room table, creating a timeline. My phone buzzed. "Yvette, Angela questioned everyone at the coffee shop," she reported. "She knows you were there." "Good," I replied, studying Maurice's evidence. "Let her worry. What's our next move?" I picked up Daisy's business card, running my finger along the embossed letters. "We build an army." "Angela thinks she isolated me, but she just helped me find her other victims." "Be careful," Yvette warned. "She's dangerous." "So am I," said, dialing Daisy's number. "She just doesn't know it yet." As the phone rang, I looked at the photo of Mom on my wall. Soon, I'd have enough evidence to free her from Angela's web. Soon, she'd know the truth. The line clicked. "Hello, Daisy. We need to talk about Angela." Meeting Daisy felt like looking into a mirror of my own pain. We sat in her home office, surrounded by stacks of financial documents and old photos. Her father's smiling face watched us from a silver frame on her desk. Angela became his financial advisor 6 months before he died, Daisy explained, her voice tight. By the time I got access to his accounts, most of his savings were gone. She claimed he made the transfers himself. "But you don't believe that," I said. "My father could barely use an ATM." Daisy pulled out a folder. "Look at these signatures." I spread them across her desk. Bank forms, transfer authorizations, power of attorney documents. The signatures shifted subtly across the pages, becoming less steady, more erratic. "She made him sign things when he was heavily medicated," Daisy said. "I'm sure of it." My phone buzzed. Maurice was calling. I put him on speaker. "I found something," he said without preamble. "Remember those offshore accounts? They're linked to a private investment firm. Guess who's on their board?" "Angela," I replied. "And your Uncle Jerry." The room went silent. Daisy's eyes widened. "That's why he believed her so easily," I whispered. "He's part of it." "There's more," Maurice continued. "I've been reviewing other client files. There's a pattern: elderly clients, sudden health issues, family conflicts, then large transfers to investment opportunities." "How many?" Daisy asked. "At least 7 in the past 3 years." My hands clenched. "We need proof that links everything together." "I might have that," a new voice said. We turned to see Yvette in the doorway, waving a USB drive. "You're not the only one who's been digging." She plugged the drive into Daisy's computer. Emails filled the screen, dozens of them, between Angela and various banks. "How did you get these?" Maurice asked over the speaker. "I work in IT security, remember?" Yvette grinned. "Angela really should change her passwords more often." I scanned the emails, my heart racing. "These show everything: the timeline, the transfers, the shell companies." "And the forged documents," Daisy added, pointing to an attachment. "She kept copies of everything." "Classic narcissist mistake," Maurice said. "She thought she was too smart to get caught." Suddenly, Daisy's phone rang. The caller ID showed Angela. We all froze. "Answer it," I whispered. "Act normal." Daisy took a deep breath and picked up. "Hello?" "Daisy, darling." Angela's voice dripped honey. "I was just reviewing your father's old accounts and noticed some irregularities. Could we meet tomorrow to discuss them?" "What kind of irregularities?" Daisy's voice remained steady, but her hands shook. "Oh, just some paperwork that needs updating. Nothing serious." A pause. "Unless, of course, you've been talking to certain people who might be confused about financial matters." The threat was clear. Daisy met my eyes. "Actually," she said, "I have been talking to people, like Maurice." Silence on the line. Then, "Maurice should be careful. Former employees can find themselves in legal trouble if they mishandle confidential information." "Is that a threat, Angela?" "A friendly warning for everyone involved." Another pause, including Zara. My blood ran cold. How did she know? "Stay away from this, Daisy," Angela continued. "Some family matters should remain private." The line went dead. We all stared at the phone. "She's scared," Maurice said finally. "She wouldn't have called otherwise. But she's still dangerous," Yvette added. "We need to move faster." I stood up, determination replacing fear. "Maurice, can you get those other clients to talk?" "Some of them. The ones who are still able to." "Do it," I said. "Yvette, keep digging through those emails." "Daisy, I'll go through every document my father signed in his last year," she finished. "Compare the signatures, build a timeline." "And me?" I pulled out my phone, showing them a text I'd just received from my mother. "I miss you. I'm going to make Angela very, very nervous." As we worked late into the night, pieces of Angela's scheme became clearer. Each document, each email, Each forged signature was another thread in her web of deception. But webs can be broken. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom. Angela says you're trying to cause trouble. Please don't make things worse. I typed back, trust me one last time, Mom. The truth is coming. Then I blocked Angela's number, turned to my allies, and said, let's take her down. The retirement home's activity room buzzed with afternoon chatter as I sat across from Eleanor, one of Maurice's former clients. Her bingo cards lay forgotten between us as she gripped my hand. She seemed so kind at first, Eleanor said, her voice trembling. Said she could help me set up trust funds for my grandchildren. Next thing I knew, half my savings were gone. Did you report it? To whom? The police said it looked like legitimate transfers. My own children didn't believe me, thought I was getting confused. She dabbed her eyes. Angela even suggested I might need memory care. My phone vibrated. Daisy was calling. Excuse me, I told Eleanor, stepping into the hallway. You need to see this, Daisy said without greeting. Remember those investment documents? I found the same company name in my father's papers and your mother's accounts. Phoenix Ventures. Yes, it's registered to a P.O. box, but guess what address is listed on the incorporation papers? Tell me. Your uncle's beach house. I leaned against the wall, pieces clicking into place. The same beach house where he hosts those family reunions every summer. The same ones Angela started organizing 3 years ago, Daisy confirmed. Right when the suspicious transfers began. A text from Yvette popped up. Emergency, meet at my place, bringing Maurice. I have to go, I told Daisy. Keep digging. 30 minutes later, I walked into Yvette's apartment to find Maurice pacing. His usual composed demeanor shattered. They're cleaning house, he said, as soon as I entered. All the accounts, all the records, they're being systematically deleted. Can they do that? I asked. Not legally, Yvette replied, from behind her laptop. But I'm tracking the deletions, creating backups. Angela knows we're close, Maurice said. Someone must have tipped her off. My phone rang, an unknown number. I answered on speaker, having fun playing detective. Uncle Jerry's voice filled the room. You always were too curious for your own good, Zara. Like father, like daughter, I replied coldly. Except he gambled away our money, honestly. You and Angela steal it systematically. We help people manage their assets, he said smoothly. Everything is perfectly legal. Tell that to Eleanor, or Daisy's father, or my mother. A pause. Be very careful, Zara. Some roads are better left untraveled. Is that why you're deleting everything? Afraid of where those roads might lead? Final warning, he said. Drop this, or things will get unpleasant. For everyone. The line went dead. Yvette looked up from her screen. He's bluffing. They're panicking. No, Maurice said. They're escalating. We need to move now. My phone buzzed again, Daisy sending a video. I played it for everyone. The footage showed Angela entering a bank, carrying a thick envelope. Timestamp, 20 minutes ago. That's your mother's bank, Maurice noted. She's withdrawing everything, I realized, going to ground. Not if I can help it, Yvette said, typing furiously. Remember those emails I found? I just sent copies to every board member of Phoenix Ventures and the SEC. You what? They can delete records, but they can't delete questions. Let them explain those offshore accounts to their investors. Maurice's phone chimed. He checked it, then smiled grimly. Board meeting called for tomorrow morning. Emergency session. Uncle Jerry will try to cover it up, I said. Maybe, Yvette replied. But I also sent everything to 3 different financial journalists. Story breaks tomorrow. I stared at her. You didn't. I did. Sometimes the best defense is a nuclear option. My phone lit up with a text from Mom. Angela's acting strange. She wants me to sign more papers. I'm scared. It's time, I said, showing them the message. Maurice, call those board members. Tell them everything. Yvette, release whatever else you have. Daisy, Already on my way to the DA's office, her voice came through speaker, bringing all my father's documents. I grabbed my keys. I'm going to my mother's. The restraining order, Maurice started, doesn't matter anymore. Angela's about to make her final move. I'm not letting her take what's left of my mother's money. Be careful, Yvette called as I reached the door. They're cornered animals now. Good, I replied, my voice hard. Let them feel what that's like. As I drove to Mom's house, my phone exploded with notifications. Yvette's nuclear option was detonating. By tomorrow, everyone would know the truth about Angela and Uncle Jerry. But tonight, I had to save my mother. I pulled up to Mom's house, just as Angela was rushing down the front steps, clutching her designer briefcase. She froze when she saw me, her perfect mask cracking for just a second. "You're violating the restraining order," she said, but her voice trembled. "Funny thing about those," I replied, stepping out of my car. "They don't hold up well when they're based on forged evidence." "You have no idea what you're doing," Angela hissed, glancing at her phone. "The damage you're causing." "To what? Your investment scheme? Phoenix Ventures? Or should we talk about Eleanor's missing trust fund?" Color drained from her face. Did you really think Maurice would stay quiet forever? That Daisy wouldn't investigate her father's death? That I wouldn't fight for my mother?" Her phone buzzed frantically. She checked it, and I watched panic flash across her features. "It's over, Angela. The SEC has everything. The board members know. The press releases tomorrow." "You stupid girl," she snarled. "Mask completely gone now. Do you know how many lives you've just ruined? Your uncle is probably destroying evidence as we speak," I finished. "But Yvette's faster than he is. Every delete just creates another backup." Angela's phone rang. She answered it, turning away. "Jerry, yes, she's here. No, I understand." While she was distracted, I slipped past her toward the house. She grabbed my arm. "Don't you dare! Take your hands off my daughter." We both turned. Mom stood in the doorway, looking stronger than I'd seen her in weeks. "Aunt Vivian," Angela started, releasing me. "She's not supposed to be here. The restraining order was a lie," Mom said, "like everything else you've told me." She held up her tablet. "Daisy just called, showed me everything. The transfers, the forged signatures, all of it." Angela stepped back, calculating. "You can't prove anything." Actually, Morris's voice came from behind us as he walked up the driveway. "We can prove everything." "You traitor," Angela spat. "No, Angela. You're the traitor. To your family, your clients, everyone who trusted you." He held up his phone. "The board just voted. Emergency freeze on all Phoenix Ventures accounts." Angela's briefcase slipped from her fingers, papers spilling across the lawn. I caught glimpse of transfer forms, already signed with my mother's forged signature. "Were you going to empty her accounts tonight?" I asked, picking up one form. "Take everything and run?" "I was protecting her assets," Angela said desperately. "The market is volatile." "Stop lying." Mom's voice cracked like a whip. "I trusted you. I chose you over my own daughter because you made me believe she was like her father. But you're the one stealing from family." Angela's phone buzzed again. Her hands shook as she read the message. "That'll be the SEC," Maurice said quietly. "They're probably at your office right now." "This isn't over," Angela warned, but her voice was hollow. "Actually, it is." Daisy's car pulled up, and she stepped out with 2 police officers. "Angela, I believe these gentlemen have some questions about my father's estate." Angela looked around wildly. At the officers approaching, at Maurice's steady gaze, at Mom's hurt and anger, at my quiet triumph. She made a break for her car, but the officers were faster. "Angela Simpson," one said, catching her arm. "We need you to come with us." "You can't, I have rights." "You have the right to remain silent," the officer continued, producing handcuffs. "Anything you say can and will be used against you." As they led her away, Mom collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I should have believed you. Should have known." "It's okay," I said, holding her tight. I've got you now. My phone chimed with a text from Yvette. Stories breaking early. Turn on the news. Maurice was already pulling it up on his phone. The headline scrolled across the screen. Major financial fraud uncovered. Prominent family behind elder exploitation scheme. Your uncle's been arrested, Daisy reported, hanging up her phone. They caught him deleting files. Mom wiped her eyes, straightening. I want to make a statement to the police, to everyone. They need to know what she did. Are you sure? I asked. She took my hand, squeezing it firmly. I'm sure. No more hiding, no more lies. It's time for the truth. As we walked inside, I saw Angela's briefcase still lying open on the lawn, papers scattered like fallen leaves, her perfect plan, her web of lies, all broken apart in a single evening. My phone buzzed one last time. Eleanor, just saw the news. Thank you for making them listen. Just as I realized, sounds like handcuffs clicking shut, and feels like your mother's hand in yours, finally trusting again. The police station buzzed with activity as Mom finished giving her statement. Detective Rivera closed her notebook and gave us a reassuring smile. That's very helpful, Mrs. Stewart. Combined with the other victims' testimonies, we're building a solid case. How many others have come forward? I asked. 17 so far, she replied. More calling every hour since the story broke. Your cousin and uncle were prolific. Mom's hands trembled as she signed her statement. All those people, how did we not see it? Because they were careful, Maurice said from the doorway. And because they used family trust against you. He handed me a coffee. The SEC just finished their preliminary audit. It's worse than we thought. How much worse? 30 million, spread across multiple accounts. They were targeting elderly clients for years, using the investment firm as a front. Detective Rivera's phone buzzed. She checked it, then looked up grimly. Angela's requesting a deal. She's offering to testify against your uncle. Of course she is, I muttered, throwing him under the bus to save herself. It won't help her much, the detective said. We have too much evidence against both of them, but her cooperation might help recover some of the stolen funds. My phone lit up with a text from Yvette. Turn on the news now. I pulled up the live stream on my phone. Uncle Jerry was being led out of the police station in handcuffs, reporters swarming around him. I was protecting my client's interests, he was saying. These accusations are completely. Is it true you targeted elderly clients? A reporter shouted. Did you know about the forged documents? What about your sister's accounts? The questions came rapid fire as officers guided him toward a waiting car. His composed facade cracked. No comment, he snapped. This is all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, Eleanor's voice cut through the crowd. She stood at the top of the steps, supported by Daisy. You stole my grandchildren's college fund. More victims emerged behind her, faces I recognized from Maurice's files. They'd been waiting for this moment. You took everything from my mother. My father died thinking he'd lost all his savings. How many families did you destroy? Uncle Jerry's face went pale as he was rushed into the police car. The cameras caught his expression, not defiance now, but fear. Back in the station, Mom watched the scene unfold on my phone screen, tears rolling down her cheeks. I brought them into our lives, she whispered. Trusted them with everything. It's not your fault, I said, squeezing her hand. They fooled everyone. Detective Rivera's phone buzzed again. Angela's lawyer just withdrew from the case, she reported. Apparently, he discovered she's been lying to him too. Morris checked his watch. The investment firm's board is holding an emergency press conference in an hour. They're going to announce a victim restitution fund. Will it be enough? Mom asked. It's a start, he replied. And with the offshore accounts frozen, my phone chimed with a message from an unknown number. I opened it to find a video. Angela, being processed at the county jail, her designer clothes exchanged for an orange jumpsuit. Who sent that? Mom asked. I checked the sender details and smiled. Karma. Detective Rivera stood, gathering her files. We'll need you both to testify when this goes to trial. It might take months, but with this much evidence, we'll be there," I assured her. "All of us will." As we left the station, we found Daisy and Eleanor waiting with Yvette. The evening news crews were still filming outside, but they weren't focused on Uncle Jerry anymore. They were interviewing the victims, letting them tell their stories. "Ready to join them?" Daisy asked Mom gently. "People need to hear your story too." Mom straightened her shoulders, wiped her eyes, and nodded. "Yes, no more hiding, no more shame." We watched as she walked toward the cameras, head held high. When the reporters noticed her, their eyes widened with recognition. "Mrs. Stewart, is it true your own brother and niece?" Mom took a deep breath and spoke clearly into the microphones. "My name is Vivian Stewart, and I'm here to tell you about a betrayal. Not just of me, but of every family member and client who trusted Angela and Jerry." As she spoke, more victims gathered around her, forming a united front. Their voices grew stronger together, years of pain and silence finally breaking free. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Maurice. "Check your mother's accounts." I did, and felt tears spring to my eyes. The emergency freeze had worked. Angela's final attempt to empty the accounts had failed. Sometimes, I realized, justice isn't just about punishment. Sometimes, it's about giving voices to the voiceless and watching truth overcome lies in the harsh glare of camera lights. The courthouse buzzed with tension as we waited for the trial to begin. 3 months had passed since Angela's arrest, and the prosecution had built what they called an airtight case. Still, my stomach churned as I watched the victims file into the courtroom. "You okay?" Yvette whispered, squeezing my hand. Before I could answer, the side door opened. Angela walked in, flanked by guards. Her designer suits were gone, replaced by plain courthouse attire. She looked smaller somehow, her confident mask cracked beyond repair. She caught my eye and quickly looked away. "All rise," the bailiff called. As the judge took her seat, I felt Mom tense beside me. This was the first time she'd been in the same room as Angela since that night. "You don't have to stay for this part," I whispered. "Yes, I do," Mom replied firmly. "I need to hear her say it." The prosecutor stood, adjusting his tie. "Your Honor, the state calls Angela Simpson to the stand." A murmur rippled through the courtroom as Angela walked to the witness box. Part of her plea deal required her to testify first, to detail every aspect of the scheme. "Ms. Simpson," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court when and how this fraud began." Angela's voice shook slightly. 3 years ago, Uncle Jerry, Jerome Stewart, approached me about helping with his investment firm. And what did that help entail? We identified vulnerable clients, elderly people, usually wealthy, often with health issues or family conflicts. "Like your aunt, Mrs. Vivian Stewart." Angela's eyes darted to Mom, then away. "Yes. And how did you gain their trust?" She swallowed hard. "We became their friends, their family. We learned their weaknesses, their fears. Then we used those against them." The prosecutor held up a document. "Like this forged power of attorney?" "Yes." "And these falsified bank statements?" "Yes." Each admission seemed to physically pain her. Good, I thought. "Ms. Simpson, how many victims were there in total?" 23 that I know of." The courtroom erupted in shocked whispers. The judge banged her gavel. "And the total amount stolen?" Angela's voice was barely audible. $34 million. More gasps, more gavel bangs. "Tell us about Eleanor Thompson's grandchildren's college fund." Tears finally broke through Angela's composure. "Please, answer the question, Ms. Simpson." "We took it, all of it. Said it was being invested in high-yield bonds, but we transferred it offshore." "And Daisy Summers' father?" "He started asking questions. We increased his medication dosage before having him sign documents." The prosecutor paused, letting that sink in. "And your aunt? What was your plan for her?" Angela's facade crumbled completely. We were going to take everything, the house, the savings, all of it. We'd already started the paperwork to have her declared mentally incompetent. Mom's sharp intake of breath cut through the courtroom. Angela finally looked at her, really looked at her. "I'm sorry, Aunt Vivienne," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Save your apologies," the prosecutor interrupted. "Tell us about your father's role." For the next hour, Angela detailed everything. Every scheme, every theft, every manipulation. The web of lies unraveled thread by thread, leaving nothing but ugly truth. When she finally stepped down, the judge called a recess. As people filed out, I noticed Maurice talking quietly with the prosecutor, handing over more documents. "There's something else," he told me in the hallway. "We found evidence linking them to similar schemes in other states." "How many?" "3 so far. Different names, different companies, but same methods." My phone buzzed. A news alert. Uncle Jerry had changed his plea to guilty. "He's throwing himself on the court's mercy," Daisy said, reading over my shoulder, trying to avoid a longer sentence. "It won't work," Detective Rivera said, joining us. "Not with Angela's testimony and all the evidence. They're both looking at significant time." Back in the courtroom, Angela sat alone at the defense table, shoulders slumped. The confident cousin who'd stolen my mother's trust was gone, replaced by a broken woman facing the consequences of her actions. Mom touched my arm. "I want to make a victim impact statement." "Are you sure?" She nodded. "They need to hear what their betrayal really cost. Not just money, but trust, family, peace of mind." As she walked to the front of the courtroom, back straight and head high, I saw Angela shrink further into herself. She knew what was coming, not just Mom's statement, but dozens of others. Every victim would have their say. Justice, I realized, sometimes sounds like truth, spoken in a quiet courtroom, washing away years of lies. The judge returned, and Mom began to speak. The gavel's final bang echoed through the courtroom. 25 years for Uncle Jerry. 18 for Angela. No possibility of parole for either of them. I watched as they were led away in handcuffs. Two people I'd once called family, now strangers in orange jumpsuits. Angela glanced back once, her eyes meeting mine briefly before the heavy doors closed behind her. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around us, but Detective Rivera kept them at bay while Mom addressed the crowd of victims and their families. "Today isn't just about punishment," she said, her voice strong and clear. "It's about healing, about taking back what was stolen from us. Not just our money, but our dignity, our trust, our sense of family." Eleanor stepped forward, gripping Mom's hand. "The restitution fund has already started processing claims. My grandchildren's college funds will be restored. And the offshore accounts have been frozen," Maurice added. "The forensic accountants are tracking every penny." Daisy joined them, holding up a check. "The investment firm's board just approved the first wave of repayments. My father's estate will finally be settled properly." As the crowd broke into applause, I felt Yvette touch my arm. "Look," she whispered, pointing across the street. More people were gathering, other victims we hadn't known about, from other states, holding signs with messages of support and gratitude. They'd seen the news, recognized the pattern, found their own justice through our fight. My phone buzzed with a message from Maurice. "Board meeting just ended. They're naming me interim CEO to clean house and rebuild trust." "You deserve it," I texted back. "Thank you for doing the right thing." Mom was still speaking to the crowd, but now she was smiling through tears. "We're starting a support group," she announced, "for anyone who's been through this kind of betrayal, because healing is easier when you're not alone." Detective Rivera approached me with a thick envelope. "The DA wanted you to have these. The original documents Angela forged. Your mother's real signatures next to the fake ones. Thought you might want to close that chapter properly." I took the envelope, feeling its weight. "What about the restraining order? Officially expunged from your record." She smiled, like it never happened. A commotion near the courthouse doors drew our attention. They were bringing out Uncle Jerry's files, box after box of evidence. One of the officers stumbled, sending papers flying across the steps. I moved to help gather them, but stopped when I saw what they were: photographs, dozens of them, showing Angela and Uncle Jerry at family events, playing their roles perfectly while plotting to destroy the very people who trusted them. "Leave them," Mom said softly, touching my shoulder. "That's not our family anymore." She was right. Our real family was here. Yvette, who'd risked her career to expose the truth. Maurice, who'd chosen integrity over profit. Daisy, who'd turned her grief into purpose. Eleanor, who'd given other victims the courage to speak up. "Mrs. Stewart," a young reporter called out, "what happens now?" Mom looked around at all of us, then smiled. "Now, we rebuild. We help others recognize these schemes before they lose everything. We turn this pain into purpose. And we remember," Daisy added, "that the truth always comes out." As the crowd began to disperse, Eleanor approached with her grandchildren. "We're having a celebration dinner," she said. "Everyone's invited. No more hiding. No more shame." "Count us in," I replied, watching Mom chat with other victims, exchanging phone numbers and hugs. My phone buzzed one final time. An email notification. The victim support group already had 50 members, people finding strength in shared experience, turning betrayal into brotherhood. "Ready to go?" Yvette asked. I looked back at the courthouse, where workers were still cleaning up the scattered photographs. One had landed near my feet: Angela and Uncle Jerry at last summer's family reunion, their smiles now seeming more predatory than warm. I left it there, turning instead to the real family waiting for me. "Yeah," I said, "I'm ready." As we walked toward Eleanor's house, Mom linked her arm through mine. "You never gave up on me," she said quietly. "Even when I gave up on you." "That's what real family does," I replied. "We fight for each other." Behind us, the courthouse stood silent, its justice served. But ahead of us, I could hear laughter and conversation growing louder. Victims becoming survivors, strangers becoming friends, broken trust being rebuilt into something stronger. Sometimes victory isn't just about winning. Sometimes it's about finding your true family in the aftermath of betrayal and building something beautiful from the ashes of what was lost. We walked toward the sound of healing, leaving the scattered photographs of false family behind us, stepping into the warm light of truth and trust restored.